asylum seeker in Epping who was jailed for a year for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman will face deportation at the end of his jail sentence. It comes as ITV has been given exclusive access to film the deportation of dozens of foreign migrant criminals. They were put on a flight to Romania after losing their right to remain in Britain. They'd served sentences for serious offences, including theft, sexual abuse and even murder.
Well, the operation to remove the 47 migrants who had all come to the UK perfectly legally cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. They were given bank cards preloaded with up to £2,000 apiece to help them resettle. Well, the UK editor of ITV News, Paul Brand, is here. Paul, no one has ever been allowed to film one of these deportation flights before, so this is hitherto unseen footage. And what you found was pretty stormy, even violent stuff, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Richard. These are people who've come to the UK with relative ease, but it is anything but easy to get them back out of the country again. As you explained there, these are people who've come mostly legally to the United Kingdom. They then committed a crime that invalidates their right to remain here. Yep. They serve some of their sentences in British prisons before then going to a detention centre for migrants, and that's where we met several of them last week.
You want to go home?
No, I've been living here almost 10 years. Sorry.
It's almost 10 years?
Yeah.
What?
I don't want to speak about it, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Will you ever come back to the UK, do you think?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. What was the crime that you committed?
I don't think I want to say this.
You don't want to discuss that?
So they were some of the more compliant individuals, calmer individuals. Yeah. Others did physically resist their deportation. They threw urine on members of staff. They were shouting abuse. Some of them had to be physically restrained. And this is why the Home Office actually wanted us to show this. It took 6 months to negotiate this access, but nevertheless, the Home Office want to see the extraordinary effort that has to go into actually removing these people. I think a lot of our viewers will think, why not just get them out of the country? Mm-hmm. It is easier said than done quite often. 47 of these migrants had to be escorted by up to 100 staff in the dead of the night to prevent disruption, taken off to an airport that we're not allowed to name this morning, but there we were allowed to film this flight for the first time.
Each migrant must be escorted to the plane by 4 staff. Their final steps on British soil before takeoff to Romania.
Right until they reach the top of these stairs, offenders will try to challenge their deportation with legal claims. In fact, 3 have already managed to get themselves out of this flight.
Ready, guys?
Roger. Right, he's going to walk on.
Well, that's it, they're coming out now.
The Home Office won't risk further escape. The more disruptive passengers are again restrained and escorted up the steps by as many as 7 staff. We're asked to enter at the other end of the plane.
Hi, morning.
Hello. Where we're kept separate from the rows and rows of migrants and their escorts. For the taxpayer, this is not a budget flight. And the costs continue to rack up in the air. We capture compliant migrants being given bank cards preloaded with money, up to £2,000 each, to encourage and aid their resettlement in Romania.
Paul, one individual who might find himself on a flight like that is 41-year-old Hadush Kubatu. He was the asylum seeker who had been staying at the Bell Hotel in Epping and sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl and a woman there in the town, and was sentenced to 12 months in prison, which is the threshold for deportation of foreign criminals. Home Office have said they want to deport him. But is he likely to also be offered £2,000 to be resettled?
Well, quite potentially, because my understanding is his lawyer has said that he wants to be deported, so he would be compliant. You've got to be compliant in order to apply for this scheme. It's called the Facilitated Return Scheme. The idea of it is, I know it sounds somewhat galling that they get £2,000, but the argument from the Home Office when I put this to the Home Secretary yesterday was that is cheaper than fighting them in the courts, for example, or having to keep them here at £52,000 a year. That's the price of a prison place or a place in a detention centre. So financially, it does actually make sense to do this, even if sort of ethically it feels not quite right.
And to be clear, the characters who chuck cupfuls of urine around and kick and scream and shout and yell, they don't get the gold card.
No, they're not supposed to have any access to this funding. They would be denied it.
We should make it clear that some of these criminals that you were sitting on the plane with are very serious offenders indeed. They're murderers and rapists. And when you actually got to Romania, you suddenly realised that you became potentially a target.
Yeah, so on the plane, obviously we're surrounded by these 100 escorts, these security staff, and then when we get off the plane in Romania, we suddenly realise, of course, the British authorities no longer have any involvement. So we looked around this point, actually, when they were streaming off the bus and realised there was no longer any security, and some of the migrants became pretty hostile towards us. They didn't like the fact we were filming. And look, they're free to go. They walk out of that airport off to enjoy the rest of their lives.
With their gold cards.
With some of them, yeah, £2,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Paul Brown, thank you.